Okay, good morning then, everyone. We are going to jump in then with our session this morning. And welcome then to the Accounting 1A Test 2 revision session. That's what we will be preparing you for today, is for our upcoming semester test number 2. As I said earlier, please make sure next to you there on the desk, you've got your textbook, some paper and pen and a calculator so you can work alongside with us. Good morning, Salama. Salama is going to be the co-presenter today. She is from Emirates Nelson Mandela, and I'm Ina Frost. I will be your presenter, and I'm from Emirates Sandton. Salama, good morning. How are you today? Good morning, Salama. Can you hear me?
Hi, Ines. I'm sorry, apology for that. Good morning. I'm well, and you are well too. And good morning to all our lovely students that have attended this our revision session this morning. Hoping that it will be a very engaging session, and I think yes, we have got a few questions already. Maybe I could just give you some update. We have a question regarding VAT. One of the students want to know if we will be covering VAT again. Yes, I did give a response to say that VAT will be relevant, especially for journals, learning year 4 to 6. And I'll be right on chapter 1 to 6. I think I'll just give a student a thumbs up there. And good to go. Thanks, Ina.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Salama. Okay, students, yes, our session is being recorded. And all the recordings, as you know, is being shared on our YouTube channel. So it's the School of Management Studies channel. So that's where you can go and look later today to find the recording of our session. Okay, so now we are here at semester test number 2. Semester test number 2 covers learning units 1 through to 6. Okay, so it covers the first 6 learning units of your textbook. Again, it is going to be for 50 marks. It is a closed book assessment, and we're going to give you 1 hour to complete the test. And you can also see it as a slightly higher weighting than what a test 1 had in your overall semester mark. In the meantime, if you want to save the date, on the 17th of June is when we'll have our exam revision day. So if you want to put that in your diary so long, so you can join myself and Salama again on the 17th of June. We're going to jump in now. We start our session this morning with learning unit number 6, because it's important that you have to understand this learning unit, because it also impacts your understanding of learning units 4 and 5. So that's why we've got to make sure first you understand your 2 inventory systems before we carry on with the journals that are done in learning units 4 and 5. I always just like to bring everyone back to our module outline for this module and what is expected of us in a particular learning unit. So remember, these module outlines, you can find them, you can navigate from your Emirates landing page into student materials. And in student materials, you'll find the module outline. And in the module outline, then, is the learning unit outcomes for every learning unit. And it's always good for you to just read through these outcomes and say, will I be able to answer a question based on each of these outcomes? Because this is what we expect you to know at the end of the learning unit. And with other words, these are the kinds of things that we can then test you on in the upcoming semester test. So in learning unit 6, then, we are introduced to 2 inventory systems. The first inventory system is the perpetual inventory system. And this one, I think you know quite well at this stage, because up until the end of learning unit 5, all the textbook questions that we did were all based around the perpetual inventory system. Then there is also another inventory system, and that's the periodic inventory system. And here in Learning Unit 6 is where we really start introducing you now to this other inventory system as well. So let's just recap again and make sure that we know what's the difference between these two inventory systems. So our perpetual inventory system, as the name says, the name is perpetual, which means it is a continuous updating of the inventory balance. So whatever happens to inventory, if we buy inventory, if we sell inventory, if we return inventory which we previously purchased, all of those transactions are immediately recorded into the inventory account, and we are continuously updating the inventory balance. This system is really only viable for businesses that has a very good technology and has good software that can allow them to continuously update their inventory systems. And also these kind of businesses will have something we call the point of sale system. So the moment a sale is being made to a customer, in the background, all the inventory systems and the cost of sales account, all of that is already being updated. Where on the other side, our periodic inventory system, this system is much more suited to small or medium-sized businesses and businesses that don't really have access to such very sophisticated technology. In this system, we have to perform a physical stock take in order for us to be able to determine our inventory balance at any given point in time. So in the periodic inventory system, we're not going to continuously be updating our inventory account as we will be doing here on the perpetual inventory side. So as accountants then, for us, the big question is, how do we go about to record the accounting entries in these two systems? And this is now really what Learning Unit 6 is all about, is how we now have to go about to record the different entries that can relate to inventory into our two inventory systems. So into our perpetual inventory system and our periodic inventory system. So from test 2 onwards, so in test 2 and in the exam, the very first thing that you now have to check when you are faced with a question is which inventory system is being used in the question. Because now in test 2 and in the upcoming exam, we can now test you on either of the two inventory systems. So that's why it's now really key that the very first thing you must look for when you start a question is which inventory system is being used by this question. And we will always say it in the question. So here you can see we said that this business is called Dash, and they use the perpetual inventory system, because it is really key that you have to have this bit of information before you jump in and start answering the question. Because if you just assume we're using one of the two inventory systems, then that will have a big impact on how you record the transactions and how you do some of your calculations. And if you have assumed the incorrect inventory system, of course, that will end up costing you then a lot of marks in the test and in the exam. Okay, so let's now start by looking at the differences between our two inventory systems. So here on the left-hand side of my screen, I'm going to show you in all the red blocks the perpetual inventory system. And here on the right hand of the screen in the blue blocks, I'm going to show you the periodic inventory system. And when the financial year begins, we know we have to have an opening balance in our account. And so both of our systems, you will see, has an opening balance of 54,000 rands. So at this point on the first day of the financial year, our two systems look identical because on the first day of the financial year, both systems in the inventory accounts will show an opening balance. And that's the first important fact that you have to remember today. So it doesn't matter which inventory system we are making use of. Inventory remains a current asset of the business, and assets always have debit balances. Okay, so that is important fact number one of the day, and you can see it also on my screen. So it doesn't really matter if we're using perpetual inventory or if we're using periodic inventory. Both of them show a debit balance because in both systems, inventory is a current asset. Then the second very important fact you have to remember when we are dealing with inventory, these two inventory accounts will always be the amount excluding VAT. So when we get to record our inventory into the two inventory accounts, we always have to make sure that we are working with the cost price of the inventory excluding any VAT. So these are two very, very key points that you have to remember for test 2 and for the exam. Inventory is an asset. Inventory must have a debit balance. Inventory is always the price excluding VAT. In your textbook, and those of you that do have a textbook with you on your desk, you can open up on page 194 of your textbook. And in there, you will see there's an example 6.2. And this example consists out of 10 illustrations. And in these 10 illustrations, they have gone through every different type of inventory transaction that we can have. And they've done all the transactions for both of the inventory systems. So the very first illustration that we come to is the one where they show you the opening balances. And in the textbook, the opening balance is 18,000 rands, where in my example this morning, the opening balance is 54,000 rands. Okay, then the next thing we're going to look at, so now we've recorded the opening balance for inventory, and now obviously throughout the year, we are going to purchase inventory. And we can either pay for the inventory with cash, so via an EFT, or it can be a credit purchase of inventory. And I have now used the accounting equation to demonstrate to you the difference between the two inventory systems. Because the accounting equation just kind of gives you a very quick visual representation of the main differences between the two inventory systems. So the first one up on your screen now, this is the accounting equation for perpetual inventory. And I'm showing you a cash purchase and a credit purchase. And you can see for the perpetual inventory system, we're going to impact the inventory account because earlier we said a perpetual inventory continuously updates the inventory account. So therefore we will expect there must be an entry into the inventory account. So we're going to debit our trading inventory account, which is an asset. And then the credit will either sit in bank or the creditor's control, depending if it was a cash or a credit purchase. And this will be how we will record it in the perpetual inventory system. Now, on the other hand, in the periodic inventory system, now we're going to see the first major difference. If you look down here at my debit entries, you will see I am no longer debiting trading inventory. Now I am going to debit the purchases account. And the purchases account is an expense account in the business. So if you look over here to the impact on the accounting equation, you will now see the impact is sitting under the owner's equity column, and the impact is no longer under the assets because purchases is an expense account. On the credit, we're still going to credit bank and creditors control, so that remains the same. It is just where the debit entry is going to be placed, which is different between our two inventory systems. Okay, so just to show you again then, for the periodic inventory system, it's going to be impacting owner's equity because purchases is an expense account, and for the perpetual inventory, the impact is felt under assets because a trading inventory is an asset account. If we look at it now in the general ledger, so again, if you're following in your textbook, this is now illustrations 2 and 3 of your textbook, where they are showing us the cash and credit purchases. So in the general ledger, we are going to debit the trading inventory account. We are debiting the asset account. And on the periodic inventory side, we're not going to debit the inventory account. We're actually going to create a brand new account, and that account is the purchases account. And your purchases account is an expense account, as we showed you earlier when we looked at the accounting equation. And the numbers here in the purchases account will also be excluding VAT. So in the inventory account, you use the amount excluding VAT, and in the purchases account, again, it will be the amount excluding VAT. So once we've purchased inventory, then the next transaction that can take place is we can now return some of that inventory to our supplier. So we can now open up the inventory, and then we can see that maybe it's damaged, or maybe it's not quite the item that we've ordered, or there can be different reasons why we now send it back to the supplier. On the perpetual inventory side, we are going to credit the asset account. So we're going to credit the trading inventory account. And on the periodic inventory side, we are creating yet another new account. So I'm wondering if you are starting to see a little bit of a pattern here. On the perpetual inventory side, we always just using the trading inventory account. But on the periodic inventory side, you can see we create new accounts. We have now already created a purchases account, and now we're also creating the purchases returns account. And the next thing that I want to draw your attention to is the impact of purchase returns on owner's equity. So please just take a very specific note of the impact of purchase returns on owner's equity. Just have a look there. I have got a plus next to my owner's equity. Okay, so purchase returns will result in an increase of owner's equity. In the general ledger, it looks like this. So on the perpetual side, we once again recording the transaction in the inventory account, and it's on the credit side of the inventory account because these are now the items we're sending back to the supplier. So this entry must now reduce our overall inventory balance. But on the periodic side, we're opening up that brand new account that we refer to as purchases returns, and the entry is also on the credit side. So you can see for both systems, the entry is on the credit side. It is just for the perpetual inventory system, it's in the inventory account, and for the periodic inventory system, it is in the purchases returns account. And again, if you're following alongside in your textbook, I'm talking now to illustration number 4 in your textbook on page 197. Salama, how is it going out there in the classroom? Have you had any interesting questions up to here?
Hi, Ina. No questions. I think the only question again is, how will we be receiving the recording of this revision? I think maybe we should just inform the students that the lectures will upload it or make it available to them on our.
Remember, students, sorry, I'm just going to jump back here quickly to that one of those earlier slides of mine. Here we go. Yeah. Remember, you can all find the recordings of our sessions on YouTube. Okay. So we're quite cool. We're on YouTube, students, and it's under the School of Management Studies channel. So if you type in School of Management Studies channel on YouTube, that's where you're going to find all of the recordings for today's sessions, as well as our test one revision. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then Salama, do you want to just give the students a quick recap on those first three entries, just to make sure they understand the opening balance, the purchases, and the purchase returns?
Perfect, Ina. Thank you for that. Yes. Okay, students, again, maybe I should also, before I actually start with the summary, Ina, I will actually just come back to learning unit 2, when we actually started with our theory, identifying also what is inventory. Your definition is very important. If you understand what is inventory, if you understand what is creditor, you will have so much better application going forward, because I always remind my students that if you understand the theory, that the application will be so much easier. And of course, again, the chart of accounts, we know that according to the chart of accounts, if you have to memorize the chart of accounts, please, you have to. If you haven't done it thus far, I think you really need to go back, just go over your chart of accounts again, because clearly there you will see that inventory is identified as a current. This control is identified as a current liability. And again, if we go back to our debt click rules, that will also guide us as to knowing that inventory is an asset and liabilities. I mean, I'll now very important that Ina went through now. Again, please just remember that inventory equals current asset, and that's why again I'm taking your rules. And if you know it's current asset, you'll know it has a debit balance. A debit balance increase on the debit side. Okay. And then in the periodic inventory system, again, it's a current asset, right? The balance debit side. Okay, but it's when we actually now try to process the transaction. Hi, Chloe. Sorry for that. I will just repeat. Chloe, what I was trying to say that is very important for you now is to just maybe revise, understand theory, and it will be so much better for you to
Salama, you are just
yes.
breaking. Sorry, you are breaking up a little bit at the moment. If you don't mind, I think I'm gonna just move on, and maybe you can just see if you can just have a look at your connection, and then we can maybe come back to this a little bit later.
Not a problem, Sorry about that. Yes, maybe that. Let me just quickly see if I could leave, and then I'll come back. Okay. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you about
perfect,
that.
perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, so this is what we've done then so far. We've spoken about the opening balances, the purchases of inventory, and the purchase returns. So let's look at the next type of transaction then. This is now where your owner takes some of the inventory out of the business. And again, in the perpetual inventory system, as we would now expect, we are going to immediately record it into the trading inventory account. And we're going to credit trading inventory. We are going to debit drawings. Now, I wonder if there's any of you that can already guess what account will we now credit for periodic inventory. Because remember now, in periodic inventory, we're not going to immediately update the inventory account. So I wonder if there's anyone maybe in the chats that can let me know quickly which account are we going to credit for if the owner made some drawings of inventory. So the debit will be drawings, but which account are we going to credit? Okay, I'm seeing one student say that they can't hear at the moment. Please, can I just quickly, can you just send me a thumbs up if you are able to hear me, students? Okay, it seems the others can hear, Caitlin, so you might just have to quickly sign out of the session and rejoin us. And wonderful, I see all of you have got the answer spot on there in the chats. You all knew that we are going to credit the purchases account. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Well done, students. That is exactly right. And then the impact on the owners, on the accounting equation then is quite an interesting one. It both drawings and purchases impact our owner's equity. And we don't often see this combination in owner's equity, where we have both a decrease in owner's equity and an increase in owner's equity. So the increase is for the purchases account that we're going to credit, and the decrease is for the drawings account that we are going to debit. And on the other side, in the general ledger then, so we're going to credit the inventory account. So it's going to be on the credit side with the drawings. And then on the periodic inventory side, we will credit the drawings account, as you all correctly said there in the chats. So here on the credit side, you'll see that drawings entry. And again, if you're following alongside in your textbook, I'm now on illustration number 6 on page 199 of your textbook. And in the textbook, you'll actually see they gave us the general journal entries, because when there is a drawings by the owner of inventory, then we record that in the general journal. So at this point, I'm going to look at our general journal entries then. So this is a little bit also Learning Unit 5, because in Learning Unit 5, of course, that's where we look at our general journal entries. But it also sits here in Learning Unit 6. So here we're now looking at the general journal entry. So the one that's up on your screen right now is the entry for the perpetual inventory system. And as we said, we're going to debit the drawings account. We're crediting the inventory account. But remember, there is also a VAT impact. So when the owner takes inventory out of the business, it does have a VAT impact. So we also need to bring in a output VAT entry. And then your drawings, remember, that will be the amount excluding any profit. So you would have used either your markup calculations or your gross margins to calculate your drawings, which will be the cost price of the item, but it will still include VAT. Your inventory will be excluding any VAT. And then, of course, your output VAT is your 15% VAT. Then on the periodic inventory side, we're going to change this entry a little bit. Instead of crediting the inventory account, this time around, we are going to credit the purchases account. So drawings will still be the original cost price of the item, but the cost price plus VAT, and purchases will be the amount excluding any VAT. If you want to practice more general journal entries, specifically for drawings done by the owner, then you can go to learning unit number 5 of your textbook, particularly question 5.4 in your textbook, and look at days 5 and 6. Those two entries are also looking at how to record drawings by the owner. Okay, right. Next one we're going to look at now is credit sales. And I'm just, okay, I see Salama is now back with us. Salama, I see you are back with us. Do you want to add anything at this stage?
Hi, yes, I have some questions here. Maybe one student want to use with the journal entry you did for drawing. You want to know when to use auto input. And then another question I have is, does the VAT need to be the first account we record as a credit? Suppose a student want to know, after drawings, must it be output VAT? Or can they first put trading inventory and then output? Will we be strict if they maybe swap two around, or will still award them more?
Okay, so remember students, as long as it's your 2 credit entries, you can show them either way around. So you could have credited inventory first and then output VAT. The key thing is just, and we'll talk about this a little bit later when we get to Learning Unit 5, for a general journal entry, you must start with the debit entry. And then if there's more than one credit entries, it doesn't matter in which order you record the credit entries. And I think I also heard Salama ask here about the output VAT. Remember, output VAT is your current liability. So output VAT increases on the credit side. So if it is an entry that has to increase VAT, then it will always be recorded in the output VAT account. If it is an entry that's going to decrease VAT, then you're always going to record it in the input VAT account, because that is your asset. So your asset account is recorded on the debit side. Okay, so this one was the same. So now we're going to do our cash and credit sales of our inventory, and for the perpetual inventory, then our cash sales, we have 2 entries, and the same with our credit sales. We record the actual sale. So the top one is the cash sale, the bottom one is the credit sale. But we don't stop there, because remember, we are continuously updating our inventory account. So if we've just sold inventory, then we also have to remove it from the inventory account, because we no longer own that inventory. We have just sold the inventory. So therefore, we need to have an additional entry when we record a sale, where we're going to debit the cost of sales account and we credit the inventory account. And we have that exact same entry for a credit sale, where we debit the cost of sales account and we credit the inventory account. So this is what we're going to do if the business uses perpetual inventory. Then we're always going to have the 2 entries for a cash or a credit sale. But on the periodic inventory side, you will see it looks a little bit different. On the periodic inventory side, I'm still recording the actual sale. So you can see bank and sales, debtors control and sales. But can you all see on your devices, I don't have that cost of sales entry, because we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But in the periodic inventory system, we don't have a cost of sales general ledger account. For cost of sales now, we have to make a big calculation at the end of the financial year. So for a perpetual inventory, if there's a sale, you always have to make sure you've got 2 entries. But on the periodic inventory side, if there is a sale, we will only have the entries recording the actual sale. And then, as I said, remember then for your periodic inventory system, there's no general ledger account called cost of sales. We are going to do a calculation at the end of the year. So again, if we go over to our general ledger, so here on the periodic side, then there's going to be no entry impacting the inventory. But on the perpetual side, we now have this cost of sales entry. So for the first time now on the perpetual inventory side, we have a new account. And this account is called the cost of sales account, and this is an expense account. And again, if you want to follow alongside in your textbook, I'm talking now to illustrations 7 and 8, pages 200 and 201 in your textbook is for the recording of cash and credit sales. But you'll remember now, we said here on the periodic inventory side, we also do have cost of sales. We just do not have a general ledger account called cost of sales. But we do have to calculate our cost of sales. And to do the cost of sales calculation, there's actually a formula that we have to do on the periodic side to calculate our cost of sales. On the perpetual inventory side, this is where we are going to use our markups and our gross margins to be able to calculate the cost of sales at the time that we record every single sale. So every time we record a sale, if it's cash book receipts or debtors journal, we immediately work out the cost of sale. On the periodic inventory side, here we're going to do the calculation at the end of the year. And if you want to follow it with me in your textbook, turn now to page 193 in your textbook, and right there at the bottom of page 193 is where they give us the formula we use to calculate a cost of sales. And the formula looks like this. Okay, so to calculate cost of sales, we begin with the opening inventory. So this is now the inventory that we had right on the very, very first day of the financial year. We add to this number the purchases throughout the year, and we subtract the purchase returns. And then we add to our cost the carriage on purchases, the railage, the freight on purchases, as well as any import duties and also custom duties. So those ones we are all going to add together. And then we subtract the inventory that we still have at the end of the year. Because, of course, this inventory is the items we have not yet sold, so it can't be part of our cost of sales calculation. This formula, students, you do have to memorize this formula. So when we ask you to calculate cost of sales, we expect you to know the formula for that calculation. And for example, here you can see in 2022, in the test in 2022, the students were asked to calculate the cost of sales, and they were giving all of the information here that they had to use in their calculation. So this is what the calculation then looks like. So we say opening inventory plus purchases minus purchase returns, minus those additional costs that we can add to the cost of our inventory, minus the closing balance, and that gives me the cost of sales. And remember, as students, when you're asked to do a calculation like this, we must be able to see clearly whether you are adding an amount or whether you are subtracting an amount. It is really important that as your lecturer, as the marker of your paper, they must be able to follow exactly how did you go from 88,000 to 52,000. So please make it as easy as possible for your lecturer when they mark your paper to be able exactly to see exactly the process that you followed in your calculation to get to that final answer. And I wonder now if any of you can remember exam tip number 1 that we shared in our previous videos. Salama, will you check there in the chats? Can anyone type in what is your first exam tip that you always have to remember when you are asked to do a calculation like this? What do you always have to show us, students? Quickly put it there in the chat. What do you have to show us when we ask you to do a calculation? Okay, so remember then again, exam tip number 1. If you have to perform any kind of calculation in a semester test number 2, then please, students, you are going to be showing us all of your workings. Please, you can see this question is for 7 marks. So please, you cannot just give us the final answer. We do need to be able to see your full process. So please remember again, exam tip number 1 is you must show us your workings in the upcoming semester test. Then you might have seen when we spoke about our calculation, I just want to go back here. When we made our calculation, I added in things like transport inwards and import duties. So why was I allowed to add those to the cost of my inventory? And remember, that comes out of section 6.1 of your textbook. So again, if you want to follow on alongside with me, I am on page 191 of your textbook. And in page 191 of your textbook, it's point 6.2, initial measurement of trading inventory, and it's example 6.1. And per this theory, they tell us we can add to the cost of our inventory any cost that we had to incur. So it's all the costs to bring the inventory to the location and condition for sale. All of those costs we can add to the cost of the inventory. So that was why in the previous calculation, I was able to add in the import tariffs and I was able to add in that transport. If you look also in your textbook, you will see there is a question 6.2. And question 6.2 is a theory question that tests your understanding of these additional costs that we can add to our inventory. And don't forget that at the back of your textbook in Annexure A are the solutions to all the textbook questions. So you do have access to questions, even if you didn't do them in class with your lecturer, they are there at the back of your textbook. Now, from an accounting perspective, how are we now going to record all of these extra costs? So let's again go and look at the accounting equation. So for perpetual inventory, it goes straight to the inventory account. So for any of those costs, custom duties, import tariffs, carriage on purchases, railage, all of those different costs, we are going to just debit them to the inventory account, and they're going to increase that asset balance. On the periodic inventory side, here we are going to open up brand new accounts for each of those expenses. So there's going to be an account just for carriage on purchases. There'll be an account for import duties, and there will be an account for custom duties. And all of these accounts are expense accounts. So all of them are expense accounts, and with other words, all of them will have an impact on your owner's equity. So back to our example 6.2. Now we're on to illustration number 5. So again, let me just give you the page number if you want to go there. It's page 198 in the textbook. And so you can see here we're debiting the inventory account with those additional costs. And then on our periodic side, here we open up all of those individual general ledger accounts. The entries are still on the debit side, but there's just a general ledger account for each one of these different expenses.
Yes.
Then you can see also we can test you on that. So again, in 2022, we asked the student to calculate the cost price of certain inventory items. And then we did include things like the transport inwards and the import duties that the student then had to bring in as part of their calculation. So there is then the calculation. And as always, of course, if you are in the semester test, you are following exam tip number 1, where you are making sure you are showing us your workings and you are showing it to us in such a way that we can easily follow how you calculated the price of the inventory items. And just to show you again, you can see this question is for 6 marks. And here, for example, I have got 2 students. On the one side, on the red side, we have student A, and student A just gave us the final answer. On this side, we have student B, and student B showed us all of their workings. And you can see both students gave us the same final answer. And so both students made the same error in that year with the 500, they forgot to take into account the trade discount. But when it comes to the actual mark allocation, look at the drastic difference in marks. Student A that just gave us the final answer gets 0 out of 6. Student B that gave us all their workings, even though they made the same error, they get 4 out of 6. And remember, students, our upcoming semester test is only out of 50 marks. So if you start losing 6 marks at a time, then you are going to be in trouble pretty quickly in that second semester test. So please be a student B always, and make sure you are showing us all of your workings so that you can get the optimal marks for each of the calculations. Then the next type of transaction that we need to look at now is settlement discounts that we as the business receive when we settle an account with a creditor. So if we have bought inventory on credit from a supplier and we now pay the supplier and they give us a settlement discount, then how do we go about to record that discount? On the perpetual side, as we would expect, we are going to credit the inventory account. On the periodic inventory side, that same credit entry is going to sit in your purchases account. And remember again, your purchases account is an expense account. And therefore, the impact of the entry is going to be shown under owner's equity. Okay, so the impact of the entry will be under owner's equity. In the general ledger then, how are we going to show it? So in the inventory account, it is going to be on the credit side of your inventory account. And on your periodic inventory side, the entry is also going to be on the credit side, but this time around of your purchases account. So when it comes to recording settlement discounts received, remember then these entries will always be recorded in the general journal. So what will the entry look like in the general journal? We're going to debit the creditors control. We're going to credit the inventory account. And an entry like this does have an output VAT impact as well. So the creditors control amount will be the amount including VAT, and your inventory amount will be the amount excluding VAT, and then your output VAT will be your 15%. On the periodic inventory side, it's going to look like this. So again, we're going to again, we're going to debit creditors control. We're going to credit output VAT, but this time around, the big difference is that we're going to credit the purchases account. Again, a purchases account is excluding any VAT. If you want to practice more general journal entries specifically for settlement discounts received, you can once again go to your textbook, question 5.4, and you can try days 16, 17, and 18. So you can go and try those 3 entries if you want to practice how to record settlement discounts received in the general journal. Salama, how are we doing out there?
Hi, Ina. Just have question one. Still don't have, we have the credit inventory. If we are not selling or returning the inventory.
I'm not sure I'm following the student's question fully. When you buy inventory on credit, that will be resulting then in an increase in your inventory and an increase in your creditors control. And if you sell inventory on credit, that will be recorded in your debtors control and in your sales, but it will still impact your inventory account because we still need to take the inventory out of the inventory account if we're using perpetual inventory. So I hope that answers the student's question. Okay, before we wrap up then on learning unit number 6, I just quickly want to take you through a few other slides and then we will have a comfort break here at the end of learning unit 6. So I don't know if any of you have already got your South African driver's licenses. Maybe you can just send us a quick thumbs up if there's anyone in the class, and you might wonder why I'm now going on to this topic, but I'll show you quickly. Is there anyone who's got their South African driver's license? Okay, so I see there are a couple of thumbs up. And maybe even if you haven't got your license yet, you know of other people who have got a driver's license. And what did these students have to do to get their driver's license? First, they had to pass their learner's license. So they had to study their K53 and get a learner's license. Then, once they had their learner's license, they had to find someone who can act as their driving instructor and who could tell them when you get to a stop street, you need to start slowing down. When you're in a corner, when you're taking a corner, you have to do it slowly, and they could give them certain instruction. But then the last thing all of these students had to do to get their driver's license is they actually physically had to get into a vehicle and start driving. So they had to start practicing their driving. And now, why am I telling you this story this morning? Because I want to draw the analogy now to what we have to do if we want to pass Accounting 1A this semester. And it's actually not too dissimilar to actually getting your driver's license. So first up again, you've also got to start by studying your theory. So just like for the driver's license where you had to study your K53, if you want to pass accounting, you also have to study all the theory in your Accounting 1A textbook. Then you have to then find yourself a driving instructor. So on this side, with other words, you've got to go to the classes because your lecturer is really your driving instructor when it comes to passing Accounting 1A. And then, of course, the big one is you could never get your license if you didn't practice driving. And the same goes for Accounting 1A. You are never going to pass this module if you are not practicing as many questions as possible. So this is really your key to passing this semester, is to practice questions. So with other words, you are going to do like this example, 6.2, you're going to redo this example and make sure that you are able to prepare all the general ledger accounts for inventory in the perpetual inventory system and for the periodic inventory system. And if you're also going to look at some other questions to practice, you can look at the 2024 exam, question number 4. In this question, they asked the student to prepare the general ledger accounts, and it was specific to the periodic inventory system. So you can definitely try this question as part of your practice, because remember now, we all going to, let me go back here, we all now going to be practicing so that we can pass our Accounting 1A. In your textbook, there's also question 6.3 that also deals with the inventory accounts, and 6.3 is also specific to periodic inventory. So when we do general ledger accounts, Salama, do you want to just remind the students then of these principles?
Yes, Ina. Well, I just hope they can all hear me. I do apologize. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you nicely now, Salama.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ina. Okay, again, very important is my dead click rule. You know, if you really understand your dead click rules, you will be able to post to the general ledger. And also, just when we are posting to the general ledger, just do note when you are cross-referencing your contra accounts is very important. And as Ina mentioned now, for example, the trading inventory account. So we know the trading inventory is an asset. So we will apply this double rule for assets. When we debit assets, we increase it. When we credit an asset, we are increasing. Okay. Then, of course, with purchases. Purchases is an expense. More specifically, the little tip I gave you here is more specifically, of course, the impact that it has to owners' equity. So we know that expenses decreases owners' equity, but when we actually show it in the general ledger, we will follow the debt click rule where expenses also have a debit balance and increases on the debit side and decreases on the credit side. So just please do remember that. And our liability accounts, again, we know it's the opposite. Always remember assets and liabilities are opposite to each other. Okay. So when we increase our liabilities, we're going to credit that account. And when we decrease a liability, it will be debited. Okay. So very, very important anything going forward now, please just remember to write this on your answer sheet. If you are going to be given your T accounts, as in test 1, you were also given some T accounts, then please just write quickly. Please write down your rules on your answer sheet, and hopefully then you will be able to apply your double entry correctly. Okay, Ina, thank you.
Thanks, Alama. Okay, students, so if you do want to try this question at home, I have got the solution here for you, but you'll have to come back then later and just come and stop on this part of the recording, and then you can mark your answer against this one. So there's the full answer for you here on the slides. Before we wrap up on Learning Unit 6, I just want to remind you also of page 70 in your textbook. Page 70 already sits in Learning Unit 2, but it is an excellent one-page summary of the 2 inventory systems, and it gives you the 5 common transactions with inventory and how it will be recorded in each of the 2 inventory systems. So don't forget about page 70 when you prepare now for the second semester test, because this is such an excellent summary of our 2 inventory systems. So as we said earlier, now we can test you on both inventory systems. So whether we're asking you to do journal questions or even accounting equation questions, we can test you on both inventory systems. And we can test you on counting equation questions with or without VAT. So here on this little sticky note then, I've given you ideas of questions you can practice that deals with accounting equation questions with and without VAT, and also for the 2 different inventory systems. Because remember, again, we said our key to success this semester is to do as many questions as you can in preparation for the assessments. Salama did mention this earlier. Don't forget to study your theory, students, because without your theory, you also can't do your application questions. And we can also ask you a standalone theory question like we did in last year's semester test, where the students had to answer true or false on these 5 questions, and they were all formulated around the 2 inventory systems. So please don't forget to study your theory so that you can also do theory questions in an assessment. Zalama, if you don't mind, I'm going to skip over. I'll give you a chance in the next recording to talk again, because I think the students are now anxious to have their break. So students, it's now just after 11. It's 7 minutes past 11. If we can please just take a 5-minute break. So if you can all be back and ready at your device at 12 minutes past 11 for us then to start, and then we're going to jump in with learning units 4 and 5. So in the next session, we're going to cover learning units 4 and 5. I'll see you back in 5 minutes.